I'm here with Laure Jackson. Hello, Anne.
Hello, it is great to be here.
Now, we've been working through the Sensory Healthy series, which I absolutely adore. We've done Sensory Healthy festivals. We've done healthy sensory health. Can't say now. Sensory healthy churches. I think we touched on sensory healthy office a little bit, or I can't remember. But I'm loving the fact that we're actually going into one topic and then saying, what can we learn from this one subject? I just think it's a brilliant way because we've done so many of these now. This is a really fresh way of saying, okay, here's a bunch of stuff. What can we do about it?
Mm. And hopefully, we don't know how long this is going to continue on for, but like we're we're in this for as long as it just keeps flowing. And at the moment, it just keeps flowing. And I've just been on a trip for 10 hours in the car, so I'm kind of feeling that might be a good one to talk about. But I
I
mean,
think so.
perhaps.
I can prattle on about driving all day long, quite happily and satisfactorily. Because partly I know I'm quite relaxed in the car because I've driven trucks, therefore I've done 10 hours of driving a day. So for me, I kind of understand it quite a lot. But for other people, when you say, yeah, we're going to drive a few hours to see you, it's like, gosh, how do you do that? I'd have to break it up and get a hotel, and 3 hours, that's terrible. And then it's 3 hours back, and you can see the level of panic and anxiety. I'm thinking, that's nothing. That's not even half a morning. So yeah, I think sensory healthy driving is a very, very good place to go. So, where do you want to start with this? Because I know you've done quite a bit of driving. Let's start with Jersey. Just give us a breakdown because I've driven on Guernsey, which is a little different. 25 or 35 mile an hour speed limit. Sometimes 25 feels like lightning because it is such a small road. And you're thinking 25? That all? Big country lane? It's not a big country lane. It's a very, very small country lane. So actually, that speed can feel quite fast, even if, like me, I'm very confident behind a wheel, having driven abnormal loads around the country at one time. But actually, just give us a bit of a breakdown. What are the roads on Jersey actually like?
We have to start off the fact that our speed limit is even lower. So most of the internal spaces, should I say, is 20 miles an hour. So inside our ring roads, in our villages, everything is 20. And our green lanes, which are the tiny little lanes where you have to know how to reverse. Your body awareness, your car awareness has to be phenomenal when you're pulling into the sides and so on. So that's an extension of your own body into those spaces. Most of it, the speed limit is 40 miles an hour. And we have one dual carriageway that, I don't know, maybe a maximum mile long. I'm not sure. And the rest of it is single lane. Or the tiny, like as in single lane, you got one on either side, like an A road. But most of them, we've got 500 miles of road, and it's all mostly little roads that are just single. You can get one car up at a time.
I did like the fact that when I met a chap coming back from Jersey on the ferry, he was teaching paramedics to drive, but in order to be accredited and licensed on Jersey to drive fast with blue lights and sirens, they have to get a ferry, sail to Southampton, Portsmouth, and be able to drive on motorways in
Mm.
order to be eligible to drive with blue lights on Jersey roads, which I find fascinating because if you've got no motorways, in what universe is that helpful?
I think Jersey would just be utterly destroyed. Like if we had motorways, it's just like, we would like most of the island would get taken up. And we do want to be able to go from like east to west quite easily, but that doesn't happen. You kind of have to squish around a little bit. But yeah, it's quite remarkable moving to the UK and going on a motorway that I'm noticed when I come off a motorway, I can stay on those smaller roads at 60, 70 really easily. Whereas when I'm coming off Jersey, when I fly in and get a hire car, or should I take the car over ever, I always start off at 40 because I'm just really comfortable. At that. And it does feel fast. It feels fast for me until you get on the motorway where you really have to put your foot down. And then you get used to that visual processing because that's what it's all down to, how quickly you can process the speed and be comfortable at higher speeds. It takes a while to train the brain to get up to a higher speed. But I do notice once I have been on the motorway, goodness me, I'm much happier going faster on the smaller roads.
Every time I'm in a car with the boys, I always say, just remember on a motorway services car parking area, people will be coming off the motorway having driven 70 miles an hour in theory, or maybe more illegally. And when they're coming off 30 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour in a speed limit, I'm just laughing, thinking, yeah, no one's doing 15 miles an hour right now on the slip road off the motorway. Nobody in this planet's going to do that. Why? Because they've just been driving at 70 miles an hour. Why would they drive at 15? They want to get in, have a wee, and go. So I always say to the boys, just be really careful, because when you've been on the motorway, people don't go as slowly as they think they are, because everything's changed. So what's going on in terms of how we, I suppose, judge speed? Driving at 70 miles an hour is obviously you're 70 miles every hour, hence the speed name. But then how does our brain compute 70 so that we don't drive into the back of someone doing 30? What goes on with the brain and the eyes and all that?
Yeah, I think we do have that combination between the visual and the vestibular. So we've got certain receptors in our inner ear that will pick up movement in one direction. So as we are moving through space, that's what the vestibular system is picking up. It's not specific. Well, it is us going through space. I mean, it's more active when you are physically kind of like launching yourself through. But even the fact that you are sitting in a car, you're not getting a lot of proprioceptive input from the rest of the body to tell you that you're moving. But your vestibular system is, because it is moving through space itself. So the combination of that input with your eyes, that is where the processing is at its best. And that's where you see, in order to slow down, say, for example, going into a service station, I didn't see any actually this time, but in some routes, they have those things that they place on the floor that actually go down in size, or that it makes you feel as though you're going quicker than you actually are.
Rumble strips.
What do you call them?
Rumble strips, that's what I always call them.
Oh, rumble strips. There you go. Which is a brilliant combination of using the auditory system and using the tactile system and getting that proprioceptive awareness plus the visual that you are actually moving. But, it helps the brain process that information quicker, because when you're driving, you really do have to process an awful lot very quickly. And therefore, for some people, driving is not the best thing to do until we've worked on their sensory processing. It's a bit like riding a bike. Some children will take ages to ride a bike, but we need to work on their vestibular proprioceptive system, their integration with their eyes, so that they can then automatically ride a bike well. In a car, there's obviously less balance involved, but we still need a really good integration between the vestibular system and the eyes, in order to process where we are in space and to be able to judge. We call it feed forward and feedback. When you're in a place and you're having to judge quite how much to press on the pedal or how much to speed up in order to make that happen. But I have to say, I was on cruise control, but it was a most bizarre cruise control, because it was one that actually pulled me back if there was a car in front. So it was a step up from the cruise control that I'd used in the UK previously when I lived there. I don't know if you have that, whether it's just the more modern cars. I got a hybrid hire car. But it was weird because it wasn't letting me choose my cruise control. It was already dictating how far it wanted me to be from the car ahead. And if I tried to change lanes, it also had a pull. So I thought, I'm having to be really sensitive to my proprioceptors, because it was pulling me off. If I wanted to turn, it would pull me back sometimes. Like whatever was going on with the electronics of the car and what's going on our roads these days, that was a really interesting effect for me to feel that I needed to be much more aware of my proprioceptive senses to be able to control the car well, to be able to even move from one lane to another. Never mind about switch off cruise control when I wanted to be a bit more in control of where it was putting me on the motorway.
I have some serious professional issues with speed variable radar control for the car. That's the bit you're talking about, that it'll see a car and say, too fast, let's slow down. Because I found it stupidly sensitive. Like, right. I can barely see the car and you're slowing down. What is wrong with you? I thought the car was broken. I really did. I had a hire car one time. And then in the UK, you never indicate left because we drive in the left-hand lane. So you indicate to go to the right-hand lane and then you move back to the left. You don't indicate. You're not supposed to. But in this particular car, if you didn't indicate left, it wouldn't allow you to go back to the left because it's saying, oh, you're drifting to the left. No, I'm driving legally and correctly. And I did get really wound up with this car because I had to switch off 3 systems just to drive the car properly. My car, I love the cruise control. When you switch it on, do you know what it does? It holds your speed at a constant pace. How fantastic is that? It's not complicated, but when you have radar control, the reason why I turned it off is if I rely upon this and one time it fails, I won't know until I've just driven into the back of a car. That's why I think, actually, as a professionally trained driver, that is a ludicrously dangerous system. And I would state that to anybody because you're not actually in control of your vehicle. Now you're relying upon systems which will fail. Guarantee they will fail. They're not perfect. It's mechanical. It's electronic. So I totally get what you're saying, and I agree. And I think actually radar avoidance stuff, I think it's absolutely ludicrous and dangerous. And I think it should be banned from all cars because I really think as a professionally trained driver, they are unsafe.
That's really interesting because I didn't know that. And coming over, I had no idea that that's what was going on with my car. So I didn't even know what to turn off.
I didn't.
Ah.
We were Googling it in the car. How do I actually get... I was trying to move across a lane and I was fighting with the car thinking, I think the steering is just broken because it pushes back so hard. I'm thinking this car is actually now defective. I'm looking for the hazard lights. Can I actually pull off onto the grass verge because it's a broken vehicle? Because why am I not allowed to steer the car? So I'm seriously starting to have a panic attack thinking I can't control the direction of the vehicle. So it was horrid. And I finally found, Nathan Googled it and we found a button to switch the thing off so I could actually drive the vehicle.
There you go. There you go. That's very interesting. I have to say, the normal cruise control, I absolutely love. That is just brilliant, and that's what really helped me drive for the hours that I was, because I could then move, and that was one of the sensory healthy tips coming out of this. It's like the shifting of positions that I was doing. Still, I could have my hands on the wheel, but it's like, are people doing that? You know, shifting your body over to one side, shifting it over to the other. So you have pressure going through different parts of the body. I don't know what other techniques that you came up with when you were driving lots, or whether you just had good seating to do it. But I found all kinds of techniques to move my head, get some extra vestibular input in there, because otherwise it's upright for an awful long time and you're not really, I mean, apart from a tiny little tilt up to watch any mirrors, you're really not getting any vestibular input at all. So I found a lot of head position movements. I was going up, I was going down, and more things as well. But what did you do when you were sitting there for long periods of time?
Got a bad back. Actually, is what I did. So the seats are better, generally speaking, in trucks. They're not all perfect. There'll be a trucker listening saying they're terrible. Actually, generally, they're much better, much higher quality. Air assisted. So it wasn't like when the truck moved, the seat was on air, usually air sprung. So a bit like air suspension, literally, on the truck made it's a little bit wallowy, but it meant that if you hit a bump, it wasn't quite so hard or terrible as it is in a car. So it meant it was a lot better, much more comfortable. You're higher up anyway, so you've already got no glare from traffic lights, from car headlights. So that's a big plus. But me, I had a bad back because the problem with most chairs is they're not designed for sitting, which sounds like a really silly thing. However, having done this, I got a bad back because when I was sitting, my back went straight, and people's backs are not supposed to be straight. They are designed by God to be slightly curved. And if you're sitting for too long, the bottom of your spine moves back towards the seat, and that's when it becomes actually straight, which is why my physio said at the time, who got me walking again because I couldn't move when my intercostal muscles stopped working. He said the problem is most chairs are not designed for sitting. They're designed not for that purpose, so they don't actually function. Lumbar support, that's the classic one that most people say, oh, don't like that, it's not comfortable. Well, if it's uncomfortable, your back is broken in some way. You need that lumbar support. If you're feeling it, then you're actually not in a good position. That's what you should feel, because it forces a natural curve back into your spine. So, I mean, I bought a special cushion for it, but a hand towel rolled up is about the right size. Any bigger, you're over curving the back. But how did I do that? Not brilliantly. I ended up with a bad back because I wasn't sitting properly. But being that high was much better. I'm always moving around. It's quite far to look to the left for the wing mirror in a truck. So you actually do have to move your whole body. You can't just move your eye. There's no rear view mirror. So if you don't move your body, you're not seeing what's going on. And so you're frequently looking because you have to. And yeah, that's what I did. But I tried to do walking. But after I had my issue with then the physio got my back working, she gave me exercises to do, which I still sometimes do. If I feel even a bit of stiffness, it's a simple exercise that puts the curve back into your spine. So that's one of the things I did. Here's another one for you. You can get little beads on the seat.
Mm.
That was a life changing moment when I sat in someone's cab one day to drive their truck and they had a beaded seat, which I don't know about your thoughts on this, but I remember them as really naff from the 70s. Just, somebody's modification of the car. Do you know what? Life changing, unbelievably good. We can't get them fitted in the car now, otherwise I'd have them, because it made such a difference. Because when you're sitting there, you're actually moving, you've got more ventilation under you and behind you, and your back is better because you can actually slightly slide just a little bit. So those little teeny tiny bits of movement, which a cloth seat, cloth against cloth, it's not going to move. You sort of get stuck. Well, this gave you just a little bit of movement. So that was a life changer.
And I think it's also really good for giving that extra tactile input into your skin. So you've got different receptors. And again, if you shift a little bit, you've got more going on, which helps with alertness levels, because your brain's got something else to focus on rather than that kind of like that flat kind of surface. But yeah, I mean, taking breaks. I mean, the traffic lights were brilliant for, I would press my hands into my eyes, and that was such a relief for my eyes. We've talked previously about having eye masks on if you need a break and stuff.
Not while you're driving.
Not while you're driving, no. But when you're actually at a traffic light, it's just some of the simplest things of just pressing the palm of your hand into your eye socket and just holding it for, if you know the general length of the traffic light, makes sure obviously you're a bit shorter than that. But it's such a relief for the eyes to be able to close and you have that press, because you've got eye muscles. You've got 6 eye muscles around the eye, and they are working all the time. Never mind what's going on in the eye and therefore is processed by the brain. Those eye muscles also need a break because you are very, very alert, and you have to be because of the safety factor. So giving those muscles a little bit of a rest. And then certainly if you actually push into the eyeball a little bit, that's a different one that people may not have heard of before. But that was really, really important from that perspective.
Driving is one of those things. Just coming back to the sort of 40 and 70 mile an hour. I don't know. Is that muscle memory, or is that something along those lines? But I think about how you get used to a certain speed, and the problem is if you're not careful, you don't think about it. So I know in the UK now, speed limits are becoming impossible to see. I've driven professionally for 2 decades. Sometimes I cannot see a speed limit sign because they're not bothering to do it properly, or it's behind a hedge. I was driving the other day and thought, what speed limit is. When as I came back out, I saw the speed limit sign and I managed to look at it, but it was behind a hedge. So I didn't actually know the speed had dropped. Lamppost didn't change. Normally, I'll look at the lamppost. That gives you the distance, tells you the average speed. Well, the lamppost didn't change. The speed did. And it's very, very lazy highway planning because they're not actually adhering to the highway code, the thing we're taught to learn to drive from, because the speed limit changed. The lamppost distances didn't change. If you're listening in the US thinking, what on earth is he on about? Here in the UK, the distance between the lampposts is actually a really good indicator of the speed limit. You don't need a speed sign to know the speed. If you look at the distance between the lampposts, unless they change the speed limit randomly and don't change the distance of the lampposts, in which case that becomes a moot point, which this road did. I was driving into Bradford, and the speed limit sign was 30 from a 40. My sat-nav didn't know the difference. It's saying it's a 40. So there's a confusion we can look at. The sat-nav is saying this is a 40. Well, it used to be. They've moved the speed sign, but they've let the trees grow over the front of it. Oh, and look, there's a speed camera. What a shock. For safety? I don't think so, because you'd have had it bright yellow. So it's those sorts of things which do annoy me when it's actually working against the driver. Here's another one. The highway code, it's the way that we learn to drive in the UK. There are things you should do, things you must do, things you shouldn't do. And it's these sort of different levels of the law. But when they change the rules of how they interpret the highway code, because somebody local thinks, do you know what? I'm going to do it this way. It actually causes quite a lot of consternation and frustration, because then the only way of driving is by local knowledge. And that's really dumb. as an approach. It's really foolish. So we used to live in Shropshire, and loads of roundabouts. If you're in the left-hand lane, basically you're turning left or going straight on. The number of lanes then increases from 1 to 2 to 3 on the entrance to the roundabout. Then you know which lane you're supposed to be in. Left-hand lane for left, left and middle for straight on, right and middle for turning right or going straight on, depending on the roundabout. Then somebody said, I know what we'll do. We're going to change that entirely. The right-hand lane is for straight on. The left-hand lane is for left. Well, that's great, but that roundabout doesn't fit this system, and everyone's confused except for the locals. Now they're aggressive with you because you're in the wrong lane, but there's no signs on the side of the road. So now you're in technically the wrong lane, but no one told you what lane you should be in because it's gone contradictory to the rules that were set. There you go.
There you go, absolutely, and that is a phenomenal example. I'm just thinking of somebody who has motor planning, processing, sequencing issues. I'm just thinking the frustration and the difficulties and the uncertainty and the anxiety that kind of provokes for somebody in that space.
Yeah.
Is similar to somebody who's trying to navigate something for the first time because of the sensory health issues, because of their sensory-based motor issues, their coordination. It's enough to coordinate everything that needs to be done in a car. You've got the steering wheel, you've got the mirrors, you're looking, you've got one hand here most of the time, or even if you're in an automatic, you've got various things on, although there's less motor planning involved in an automatic. So therefore, definitely, if you have sensory-based motor issues, if you have passed your test, then probably, an automatic or an electric is likely to be the best for you. But those confusing things, they just add to anxiety and to pressure. And we really don't need that, wherever we can. We really don't need that, do we?
Here's one for you. I've seen this the other day. Why is it we get into a place we don't know? We're trying to find our route. What do? We turn the stereo down. How? Why? What on earth do we think he's going to do to help us improve our ability to drive in a place we don't know, following the signs? Why do we turn the stereo down? I've done it. I do it all the time, and I don't know why.
That is so good. That is our auditory processing and the difference that makes to us being able to process thoughts, to pay attention to things that we know our brain needs to pay attention to. Most of the time, we don't need that much brain power to concentrate on what we're doing. When we get to a new place, we really do. We need to be taking in all the visual, rather, everything that we're seeing. We need to be taking in absolutely. It's a new place. How big are the roads? What are the cars doing? We tend to slow down. There's more and more things that is new, and that's a big part of praxis, which is kind of like dyspraxia. If people have heard about that. The praxis ability of being able to plan and to think of the things that you need to do, and the brain can only cope with with so much of that. So having the auditory system, we use sound first thing in the morning, maybe when we need a bit more, zhizhing up. We need to be a bit more alert, and we're really keen on having all of that sound. And yet at the end of the day, or if we're needing to concentrate, we absolutely do need to switch it down. And I was curious as I was driving the different levels. There are sometimes I wanted the music on, sometimes I wanted it off, sometimes I just wanted somebody to talk, other times I just needed it quiet. Another time I reached for my noise cancelling headphones, because although I was in a hybrid, I was aware there's still a lot of low frequency sounds. So I thought, actually, I wonder what it's like to put my ear defenders on. So I have my noise cancelling headphones when I'm doing a lot more flying and other bits and pieces, just to help my own brain be as fit and healthy as it can be. But that was really interesting. Not that I couldn't hear, I could still hear everything that was going on, which is important when you're in a car. You do need to have some auditory going on. But it was really helpful for a period of time just to allow the ears to ease off. This was while I was in the motorway and I knew, you're just going in one direction. And yes, it's just very interesting for everybody to take account of what their auditory system is taking in. Actually be very conscious of those things, because you will spontaneously, like you did, or you do, you switch things off if you need to concentrate, which is brilliant. That's exactly what we ought to be doing.
I'd never actually made the connection to increasing my ability to concentrate, because I just thought, how is turning something down helping me do something else? That makes sense. That's why we have you. That's why I'm not the sensory healthy person. Yes. Now, driving. I have lots to say on this. As you know, we hired a car one time and it looked like a beautiful car. It was phenomenal. It was like 80 grand's worth of car. It was insane. The hire company really messed up and this is all they had left. It's like, fine, we have to give you this car.
Right.
Fine. Which was great until we got on the motorway because I discovered that this massive beast of a car had something like a 1.1 litre engine. And when I got up to 70 miles an hour, I thought this car's about to explode. So it has a tiny engine, so it sips away at the fuel, which is a brilliant idea, except it's really stupid because what it means is at higher speeds on a motorway, like anything above 50, 50 to 60 is pretty normal on a motorway. Below that, you're actually becoming a hazard.
Yeah.
And at 50 to 60, the amount of noise was intense. We ended up trying to get off the motorway and traveled on really congested side roads because the volume of noise from the car engine being so tiny versus the size of the car, we were exhausted. And we came up and we were just sitting there, just in silence, wiped out because the engine noise was so loud because it was way too small for that car for a British motorway.
That's really interesting. What a brilliant example again. Yeah. And we don't often pay attention. That's why air travel, so much other travel can be exhausting because we're with mechanical noise. And that's a very good example.
Did you have to go over any concrete motorway when you were here?
Oh, again, the change in the sound. Deary me. And the feel is just like it is really solid. And it's like, no, I don't like that at all.
We used to live in Shropshire, and if you're English, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about now. The M54 motorway goes from Shrewsbury Telford through to Cannock and then onto the M6. And most of that motorway has been concrete for years. And then as it gets broken or they have to replace the concrete, because of course it wears out, they're replacing it with tarmac. And there are these little stretches where just for a moment, the noise, the din just empties away because now you're on the tarmac and it's actually doable. Concrete, I understand. I mean, it's really cheap. It lasts for a long time. When it gets a groove, it's much more dangerous. But actually, the little stretches of tarmac, driving on the M25, the ring road of London, effectively, and there was this part where there was concrete tarmac, and that was almost even worse because it's like, it's just this constant. Could you just make your mind up what you're doing here, please? Because I'm fed up with this. And yes, there are stretches of motorway which are just especially tiring. Concrete, not a good product for high-speed motor vehicles.
Amen. Yeah. We've done truck drive, like truck cab design before, but this is actually what can we do about everything else to support that? Yeah. Concrete roads not being one of them.
Amen to that. Right. I know I've touched on this before with you probably a year ago. There was a car company, I'm sure it was Mercedes, who were always trying to create the quietest car. And at one point, it got so quiet that somebody couldn't cope, that they were getting nauseous because they could visually see the fact the car was moving along, but it was so smooth the ride they couldn't feel any bumps to recognize, well, something's going on. And it was so quiet, their ears couldn't hear noise, and therefore not enough. Therefore, they felt sick because they have no connection effectively to the outside. If you're on a bicycle cycling along, you can feel the wind start to increase, then the flies get in your mouth. You know you're on a bicycle. In a car, you don't have that. But if too much noise goes away, it's actually not helpful. Why?
No. Well, that's it. Our sense of orientation of who we are, how we are. It's all so important, so important. That's what our senses are there for, that foundational basis. And you take away the way that we've been designed to pick up things from our ears and eyes and body. You take that away by changing the environment too much, by changing the car too much. And we've lost the essence of that humanity. The things that make us human, the things that are important to the way that we function, we can't take away, enough. You can't take away too much of the sensory input. And that's where I was very careful, really interesting with my noise cancelling headphones, just quite how that is. Again, crossing roads, if cars are too quiet, we have no perception that they're around. So we need to, rely on our eyes to be able to see, make more attention to, or pay more attention if you are wearing headphones on the road, so that you are, drivers need to be more aware of you so that you're not going to get knocked over or run over because you've just lost that consciousness, lost that awareness. And our sounds are brilliant for giving us orientation. It should be connecting really, really well with your vestibular system and with your visual system. That's why we talk about sensory processing and integration, because we want all our senses to be well integrated together. And when one of them is out of sync, or if it's not getting that normal, typical amount of input, then something goes off, and we are not healthy.
So I talk about electric cars for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
My bias against electrical cars is about to come out. I think every electrical car should be fitted with the same sensor that truck trailers have to have when they're reversing, when they're driving below 10 miles an hour. The reason being, I find them phenomenally, ludicrously dangerous, because we are in a society where we understand that if a car is moving, there is an engine noise. There is some tire noise, granted, but basically irrelevant. We're listing out for car noises. So I think every single electric car in the world should be forcibly fitted with a reversing siren that is always going off under 10 miles an hour, because I'm fed up of being in a supermarket and being almost run over because someone doesn't see me, doesn't hear me, and I can't hear them, but they're in the car, so they're at fault. They need to be aware. So it may not be a popular decision. It would drive people nuts and probably get rid of their electric cars. Good plan. But I think they should be fitted with the reversing sirens under 10 miles an hour.
That's really interesting, yeah. And I would say at a low, because whenever the trucks do it, or the lorries do it, it's really loud. I'm thinking, does it really need to be that loud?
So, yeah, it really
we
does.
come at it from both angles. A little bit would be maybe no bad
Something.
thing. So just yeah.
I don't think the noise is enough on a truck trailer. Honestly, the number of people, oh, I didn't see you. Seriously? I'm 40 foot long, I'm 14 foot high, and you can't see me with lights flashing and a reversing siren. Oh, I didn't notice you there. Honestly, it's not loud enough or bright enough. The people, how do they not notice?
Wow.
I told you I have a few things on this one. This is my wheelhouse of knowledge. For good or for bad. Yes, Andy B rants. I have a rant with my plugged-in guy from America about car driving. We have a similar thought to you on the lane directional stuff of the car telling you what lane you're supposed to be in. No, you did not take your pass your test. No, you are wrong. And this car that we hired, I don't even know what the brand was, it drove me up the wall because I'm the expert driver here. I'm literally the one in the driving seat, and you're telling me when I should be slowing down or moving lane, and actually you're wrong. Plain and simple. So on that one, it actually had like you could vary the sensitivity of how far it let you be behind a car, and on the least sensitive, it was rubbish. It was you needed to be able to get closer. Because moving traffic, it's not dangerous, but it was too much. But here's my concern. Here's another thought for you. All these driver safety aids, which is how they're built. If it said driver safety aid, it's probably got nothing to do with safety. I'm afraid that's my cynical view now. But radar control speed, I think, is dangerous. I think lane, making you stick in your lane, I think that's really dangerous. I think even airbags have got their dangers about them, not because I think airbags are terrible. Yes, they're going to save you. But here's one for you. Our reliance upon technology to keep us safe. What are your thoughts on that from a sensory healthy perspective in terms of learning to do stuff and then getting very lazy of, it's fine, cruise control, I can sit back, the car's going to steer me, it's going to brake for me. That's what bothers me. But what are your thoughts from a sensory healthy perspective on that?
Yeah, I think for the most part, like 99%, I would agree with you. There is only that extra 1% for those who do have those issues. But then I think that 1% probably ought not to be in the car anyway. It's like basically you can drive or you can't drive. I don't think that having safer cars that do things for you is the way to go. I think as humanity, we've done very well, and there are certain things that are natural and instinctive, and the fact that we've been able to learn how to drive and for the most part drive well. We might have certain security things, and that might be a conversation to be had, but I'd much rather rely on us as humanity if we can. But it would be interesting to do. I mean, you can't really trial it. That's the thing for science. It's kind of like you either you need to convert the whole society over to a way of being, and then realize, oh, actually, no, that's not. And that's the way we're going at the minute. So we are being pushed to being a lot more automated in everything that we do. And it's only really, say, in 10, 20, 30 years' time that we're going to realize, actually, have the accidents gone up? Have they gone down? What are the type of, just the statistics of it? And unfortunately, we are the guinea pigs. So we can't say. So some element of helping, human error, but not to the extent of personally, we're able to drive, and let's continue to do so, unless someone can show me any other statistics. Otherwise, it's I'm happy.
Digital diaries, for example, now we know the generation below us can't remember dates and times. Why? Because their diary tells them. So their ability to retain information, like when have I got an appointment, actually that's changed. It's not an evolution thing, that's nonsense. But it is how we consider thinking about things and constructing information trails in our brain. That's now changed so dramatically that people don't know how to remember things. Phone numbers. I didn't have a phone book as a kid. You just remember the numbers. I want to ring so-and-so. You put numbers into the phone and you ring up. Now, speed dial 4. Well, that's convenient, not necessarily helpful. Just because we can doesn't necessarily mean we should. And the fact that we're being told we should doesn't necessarily mean it good.
Absolutely. And I'm very conscious of the difference between an actual gear stick or a stick shift, if for those who use that terminology. It's all moving to an electric, you lose all of that sensitivity. And it's a lovely thing to be able to motor plan, to have that muscle memory, to have that way of growing into driving. Whereas we're going to have people who are moving from manual into automatic. And at some point, those skills are going to disappear. And then they might, what if they need to go into another car, or if they do hire a car and they're put into something that has a completely different motor plan, which is how you organize your body to be coordinated. It's very, very different between a manual and an automatic. And those skills, can we interchange? How much of that are we going to lose? That brings in its own risks as well. But
it's a very specific problem of why technology is not helpful. When you're driving an articulated vehicle and you want to get the tractor unit connected to the trailer, you basically get the right height, you couple under. So basically the tractor unit starts to go under the trailer. And there's a massive pin called a kingpin that gets caught by the fifth wheel on the back of the trailer. And there's a big clunk and it locks in, and then you put a little thing and off you go. With an automatic gearbox, it's basically bordering on impossible to do it well, because with a clutch in a truck, you can use a little bit of power and back off, because you want a bit of pressure so that the kingpin is actually touching the fifth wheel. You want the trailer to be a little bit of weight on there, otherwise it's going to skip over the top and you're going to wreck the cab because you're going to miss it entirely. But when you have an automatic, the first time I drove it, and everyone said the same, this is horrendous. How are you supposed to do this? Because losing the clutch, well, much easier now. No, it's not. Now we're slamming the tractor unit against the trailer, because unless you get it perfect, and I can tell you now, it ain't all perfect out there, you're going to slam the tractor unit against the trailer, because now you have to use so many revs to make it move at all, that when it moves, it goes at greater speed. With a clutch, you can do it much more gently. And actually, I hated always automatic gearbox as a truck driver. Give me a manual any day of the week, much better, because now I'm more in control of a 44-ton vehicle. I think that's a good thing, personally.
I'm behind you on that one.
Sorry, this is definitely my Andy B rant day for driving. I've done it professionally for 20 years. I have much to say as a professionally trained, qualified driver.
Yeah. Well, that was a good topic to pick for today. Then there we go.
I think so. If you've got any topics you want us to cover as we look at sensory healthy something, sensory healthy driving, or sensory healthy Andy B ranting, depending on your perspective. We've done churches and we've done all sorts. If there's a topic that you would love Anne and I to cover as we take a topical focused look on subjects, get in touch. hello@pure247radio.org. hello@pure247radio.org. And Laure Jackson, as ever, thank you. And next time I'll speak less. We'll pick a topic I have less of a rant on.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's great. See you next time.
Thank you. The June issue of Pure Media, the magazine, comes out on Friday the 7th of June, with a whole host of international writers speaking on life, faith, sports, technology, joy, and more, from our family to yours. In the June edition, we shine the spotlight on Sherry Seligson, a marine biologist from Florida, and Chris Kerr, who helps us focus and celebrate on dads.
Sign up today and enjoy all of this and more at www.puremediathemagazine.com.